The steering is super light on it. A lot lighter than I thought it would be. And that's not necessarily bad for something that's off-roading. If you're not taking it onto a track like you would like a Mustang, this tight steering doesn't really matter all that much.
I've never driven one.
Not a Mustang or this?
The Bronco. I've like taken it out, but I always have a porter come with me and I let them drive, and then that's how I usually do. I'm not a very good driver, so I don't trust myself driving the company vehicles.
2-liter on it as well is like really fast. I know on the lower end, this one and the first edition, instantly it's a standard option to get the 2-liter or inline 4 Ecoboost. But on the ones below, such as the base and I think the Big Bend, those ones have the option of the 1.5 liter, which is surprising because the 2.5 liter inline 4 you guys made 3 years ago makes less horsepower than the 3-cylinder you guys make now, which is not, I mean, you think engine capabilities have come a lot farther since back then. It's a super commanding driving position as well. I mean, you have the whole, there's no slung over hood. I mean, you're very up front with it. It's and you feel commanding. You don't feel like, you know, anything's gonna stop you.
And we had like 2 first editions, and I'm pretty sure they were in our showroom for, I want to say, like a day maybe, or maybe even less than a day. Like, I want to say they literally just parked it in our showroom and then immediately it was sold.
And so for GOAT modes, which is going over all terrain is what that means, you have normal, eco, sport, and then slippery. And if you go back the other way, you have mud, sand, rock crawl. No snow mode, but I'm sure that's going to be an addition on just the normal Bronco, especially because it has a higher, you sit higher in it, and then the ground clearance is like going to be ridiculous, especially if you get the first edition, which has 37-inch tires, which is crazy. But nothing special. I mean, this was put in the EcoSport in 2018, and it's now through every model range, this kind of raised infotainment system, which, you know, kind of reminds people of like an Audi or BMW, because since those are the people who first started doing it. But this is pretty normal in the industry for right now for cars. I know dual zone climate control on these is an option. The heated seats, I'm surprised it wasn't optioned. Ford didn't option it with the dual zone and the heated seats, but that's Ford. They make some weird decisions sometimes. All the standard stuff you'd find on a car. All right, and then go outside. Oh, perfect. Well, that's much better than having to press a thing. So it's the 2-liter EcoBoost that they put in the Ford Escapes. In fact, a lot of the technology other than the 4-wheel drive system in this is going to be in the Ford Escape. Same 4-wheel drive system, I think, as the Ford Escape 2. There's just tiny little differences. You're not going to get much hardcore off-roading done with this as much as you are with the, if you were to go for like a the Badlands version of the normal Bronco, but you're still going to get some mild off-roading done in it. And again, that's why they call it the baby Bronco, because there's not much. Legroom in the back is pretty decent. It's pretty standard for kind of like a crossover sized SUV. No sloping roofline, again, due to the fact that it's not a crossover. And you have the boxy shape. The retro design of these SUVs is actually coming back, and the 80s design of all the boxy SUVs has become really popular in the last, I'd say, about 2 years. And that's why the Bronco has taken on so much praise, is because it brings back the traditional meaning of a Ford Bronco and also puts a modern take on it. And of course, you have enough room back here to carry groceries or something like that. Never are you gonna be able to get a 7-seater in this or the normal Ford Bronco, but that's okay, because no one's buying these vehicles for toting around a bunch of kids. You buy an Explorer, an Expedition for that. You don't buy a Bronco. Even on the Badlands version, you do miss some key features that you'd find on something if you spent the same money on a Ford Escape Titanium. That's going to be stuff like a power lift gate. That's going to be stuff like gas struts holding up the hood. You do get blind spot monitoring, and you get the signature Ford keypad to get into the car, which most new Fords have that these days. LED taillights, and then the LED headlights that the running lights aren't on right now, but you know, it does have the LED headlights. The Badlands version of this versus the base and the Big Bend, you get these carbon gray alloy wheels. They're 17 inches, so the same size you'd get on something like a titanium for the Escape or EcoSport. This, I mean, it's about 6 feet tall at its highest point, 6 feet tall, and so it's still a pretty small SUV. You just have your gas with the Ford Easy Fuel. There's not much to say about this car. A lot of it is, you know, just standard Ford stuff, and which is good because Ford has always done stuff right. You have the swivel wheel instead of the stick in the middle for changing your gear between park, reverse, neutral, drive. Goat mode, going over all terrain, you have the ones that we went over earlier. Traction control off, four-wheel drive. That's the locking diff. That's the rear locking diff, and then you can lock the four-wheel drive. Bunch of space in here. Again, you have paddle shifters, so that's why you have your manual mode down here. So pretty standard stuff for the that you see on Fords. But the key behind this is that, let's say you either are impatient and don't want to wait for the Ford Bronco to come out, or you don't want to fork over the almost 60 grand you can spec a Ford Bronco up to. This is the what was the sale price on this?
This one's 30, or no, the base starts at 28. This one's 34,165.
Right, and that's if you bought a Badlands version of the Ford Bronco, you would be spending 50. With the Ford Bronco, you're spending the extra $20,000 because the car is truly a capable off-roader. And not that this isn't, but this is if you don't want to buy an Escape because you see too many of them around, and this, you want the retro body style that they had back in the 80s, and you want to be able to do some mild off-roading. This is your vehicle. I mean, and yes, you're spending $5,000-$6,000 more on the Ford Bronco than you are an Escape Titanium, but you're getting so much more of a car that has so much more of a road presence, even though it's not any taller than the Ford Escape. It's honestly an amazing deal. If you don't want to wait for the Ford Bronco in general, you can come and get these. They are going fast, though. I think the salesperson at Ford told me there were 30 when they first got them, and now there's 3 left on the lot, and this one again was sold for 34. If you guys are looking for a mild off-road car and you kind of the size of a crossover, decent gas mileage, this is going to be what you need. But if you really are a true off-roader, you just got to wait that extra couple months for the Bronco. It will pay off. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We'll get back and head back to the dealership. Auto holds a big feature on cars now that you see. I see it more than I see auto stop start. 8 miles, that is scary.
We're really close.
Hopefully you're not. Yeah, definitely not 8 miles away.
Yeah.
You're not taking forever to get up to highway speeds in this. And on the road, it feels pretty comfortable. I don't hear much road noise outside the car. And I have a Ford Escape, which you hear tons of tire noise on. And that's not, if it was the Titanium, I'm sure it'd be a little different. But this is not much road noise. Pretty comfortable and secluded cabin. Engine is nothing to write home about. It's a standard Ecoboost engine. Like, it's not going to be the 2.7 liter V6 that everyone's happy about, or the 5.2 liter V8 they put in the Mustangs. Just the 2 liter, but that's enough power for this. It makes 250 horsepower and has 288 pound-feet of torque. This thing is not low on power by any standard. If you're someone looking for a decently mild ride that can get you to a decent speed pretty quickly, and you don't want to buy an ST, which we just test drove one of those and that was ridiculously fast for an SUV, then the 2 liter will be fine for you. And you get, I know on here it says 11.8 miles per gallon, but the average on this is like 25 in reality. And it says 11.8 because the test drive route is so small that it doesn't really have time to give an accurate number. So this is definitely perfect if you're just looking for something to cruise on the street with, or, you know, run all over town with. And then on the weekends if you want to go out and off-road it. This is perfect. I suspect you're going to see a couple of these get lifted, at least an inch or two, because, you know, what's going to happen is there's going to be buyer's remorse, and people are going to buy these because they don't want to wait for the Bronco. And not that the Broncos, it's just a different style of car, but people are going to have some form of buyer's remorse and want a Bronco, and they're going to come trade these in, and they're going to be like, well, I should have waited 6 months. Which, that's why I urge anyone who wants to do serious off-roading, wait until you can get a Bronco, because those are what those are built for, and you won't make a mistake going with those. It was built to compete with Jeep, and it completely has wiped Jeep off the planet in terms of that, because, to be honest with you, the Gladiator kind of flopped, and the Jeep hasn't been updated in 5 years, other than the exterior of it. But then Ford drops the Bronco, and it's a completely different, completely modern take on an off-roading car that, you know, frankly has been, it's the most searched car of that in regards to 2020 and 2021 there has been in the last 6 months. So this is a perfect, this and the Bronco are perfect examples of Ford's ability to build a car that gains attention. And that's why they've sold, their ability to do that is why they've sold F-150s, and why the F-150 is the highest selling car in the country, if not the world, because of how many people who buy them, and they're in foreign markets and everything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bronco Sport and the Bronco alone reach over 200,000, 300,000 sales in their first year, because that's what's going to end up happening. Is they're going to be so popular, and people are going to spend the money on them just so they can say they own a Bronco. And I probably will be one of those people, you know. Typically I'd go for something like a Mustang, but to be able to go anywhere and it be a Bronco, I mean, you get the name, and you get the technology, and you get the capability of what those two models can do. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.